The next morning, the twin suns bathed the planet in soft light, painting the rocky landscape with hues of gold and green. Captain Jalen descended from his starship one last time. Today, he would ensure that the energy fields were completely stable and that the settlement remained safe. But more than that, he felt a sense of anticipation. He had grown fond of the alien girl, and their partnership had become something extraordinary. The alien girl was waiting near her device, her glowing eyes bright with curiosity. She made a series of melodic sounds and gestured toward him. Jalen smiled. "Good morning," he said. "Are you ready for today?" She nodded and tapped her device as if saying, "Yes, let's make sure everything is safe." They moved toward the canyon together. The landscape was calm now, the red glow from the crystal subdued. Jalen checked his instruments. The readings were stable, and the small tremors had stopped. It seemed their work had held through the night, but Jalen knew better than to assume everything was perfect. The alien girl led him carefully to the center of the canyon, pointing out weak points along the way. She tapped her device, and a soft holographic map appeared, showing energy flows and potential risks. Jalen studied it closely. "Everything looks good so far," he said, "but we need to double-check the surrounding area." He gestured toward the rocks and cliffs. She nodded, understanding perfectly. They split up slightly, each observing different parts of the canyon, careful not to disturb the energy field. Minutes passed in quiet focus. Then a soft hum rose from the crystal, different from the usual pulses. Jalen's eyes widened. "It's reacting again," he said. The alien girl made a sharp sound and gestured urgently. Something was changing. The crystal began to glow brighter, but this time it was controlled, almost rhythmic. Jalen realized that the energy was stabilizing itself. The alien girl's device was helping it adjust naturally. She looked at him and made a sound he interpreted as, "It's safe now. Watch carefully." Jalen watched as the light spread evenly across the canyon, forming patterns that seemed almost like music. Sparks of energy danced harmlessly over the rocks, and the creatures that had once prowled the area stayed away. Slowly, the canyon returned to a peaceful state. The alien girl made a happy sound, clapping her hands lightly. Jalen laughed softly. "You did it," he said. "We did it together." She tilted her head, glowing faintly in acknowledgement. He realized that her intelligence, courage, and calmness had been key to stabilizing the energy. Humans could bring ingenuity and problem-solving, but she brought knowledge of her world and control over its strange powers. They spent the rest of the day exploring the area near the crystal. Jalen recorded everything, noting patterns, behaviors, and energy flows. The alien girl guided him through paths he would have overlooked and pointed out details that only someone familiar with the planet could see. Together, they made a complete record of the crystal's energy field and how to maintain it safely. As the day passed, Jalen felt a sense of satisfaction unlike any he had experienced before. Humans were known for their courage, adaptability, and ingenuity. But here, on this distant planet, he had seen those qualities combine with curiosity and respect to create something truly remarkable, a partnership that transcended worlds. When the sun began to set, casting long shadows over the canyon, Jalen turned to the alien girl. "I think our work here is done, for now," he said. She made a soft, melodic sound and gestured toward him, as if asking him to stay. He smiled gently, understanding her sentiment. "You've taught me a lot," he continued, "about this planet, about courage, and about working together. I will not forget this." She tapped her device and made a sound that Jalen interpreted as, "Nor will I." For a long moment, they simply stood together, watching the canyon glow softly in the twilight. The energy was calm, the creatures were gone, and the settlement was safe. Jalen felt a deep sense of pride, not just in what humans could do, but in what humans and aliens could achieve together. Finally, he knelt slightly to her level. "I have to return to my ship," he said softly. "But I will come back. There is still so much to explore, and I want to learn it all with you." The alien girl stepped closer and tapped his hand lightly with hers, a gesture that needed no words. It was a promise of trust and friendship. Jalen rose and walked toward his starship, casting one last glance at the canyon. The alien girl stood near her device, glowing softly under the twin suns. He felt hope swell in his chest. Humanity was small in the universe, but humans could adapt, learn, and form bonds with other intelligent beings. They could face challenges, solve problems, and create friendships that spanned the stars. As the engines of the Endeavor hummed and lifted off, Jalen looked down at the settlement. The alien girl waved a small hand, and he waved back. The stars stretched endlessly above, silent witnesses to the bond that had formed between two intelligent beings from different worlds. Jalen's mind wandered as he climbed into orbit. He thought about the challenges they had faced together, the creatures, the unstable energy, the dangers of the canyon. But more than that, he thought about the lessons he had learned. Humans were clever, resourceful, and brave, but when combined with understanding and respect for others, those qualities became extraordinary. The planet shrank below him, glowing softly under the fading light of the twin suns. Jalen felt a thrill of anticipation. There were more worlds to explore, more mysteries to uncover, and more beings to meet. Humanity had much to offer the galaxy, and with allies like the alien girl, the possibilities were endless. For the first time in his career, Jalen realized that exploration was not just about discovery. It was about connection. It was about courage, patience, and the willingness to understand those who were different. And in this distant canyon, on this strange and beautiful planet, he had found something extraordinary. A friend, a partner, and a promise of what humans could achieve when they dared to reach for the unknown. As the stars filled the sky, Jalen set the course for his next mission. But he knew one thing for certain. He would return. The alien girl, her device glowing softly in the settlement below, was waiting. And together, they would continue to explore, learn, and show the galaxy the true power of intelligence, courage, and friendship. The next morning, Captain Jace awoke to the cold metal of his cell, the memory of the previous trial still fresh in his mind. His muscles ached, but his mind was sharper than ever. He knew that the Queen's tests would not stop at one. Each challenge would push him further, trying to prove that humans were weak and unworthy. The door hissed open and the guards came for him. This time, he was not just being tested, he was being displayed. The Queen wanted to see his performance in front of others. Jace's heart sank as he entered a large chamber filled with alien spectators, their faces glowing faintly under the strange light. Some were curious, others hostile. All eyes were on him. "Human," the Queen's voice echoed across the hall. "Today you face the second trial. It will test not just your body but your mind. Fail, and your life ends immediately." Jace looked at the setup. It was a complex maze of shifting platforms, moving walls, and energy traps. He had seconds to analyze it before the trial began. Alien symbols flickered along the walls, controlling the obstacles. One wrong move could trigger a deadly trap. He felt a presence behind him. Princess Elira stood at the edge of the chamber, her gaze fixed on him. She did not speak, but her eyes held a message. Survive. Jace understood. She could not openly help, but even her silent encouragement strengthened him. The trial began with a sudden jolt. Platforms shifted, walls closed, and beams of energy shot across the floor. Jace leapt over gaps, rolled under barriers, and used his hands to cling to moving surfaces. Every instinct he had honed in training came into play. A particular trap caught him off guard. A narrow corridor filled with swinging blades. He timed his movements carefully, calculating each step. Sweat dripped from his brow as the blades came closer and closer. He could feel the energy of the alien spectators, all waiting for him to fail. Then, a small, almost invisible hint appeared. A lever partially hidden behind a wall. Jace realized it could alter the movement of the blades. He grabbed it, and the blades slowed just enough for him to pass. A part of him knew someone had guided him to notice it. He glanced toward Elira. Her eyes met his, and for a fleeting moment, she gave a slight nod. She had helped him again, subtly, without the Queen noticing. Jace continued through the maze, each step more dangerous than the last. He used his knowledge of gravity, timing, and motion to outsmart traps designed to kill. It was a test of human ingenuity against alien precision, and he realized that humans' ability to adapt quickly was their greatest strength. Finally, he reached the center of the chamber, where a floating platform awaited. A symbol glowed beneath it, signaling the end of the trial. Jace jumped onto it, and the platform rose smoothly to the top. The spectators gasped. He had completed the trial. The Queen's eyes narrowed. "Impressive," she said. "But do not think this changes anything. You survive, yes, but you are still my prisoner. Tomorrow brings a trial that will test your spirit. Only the strongest survive it." Jace was dragged back to his cell, exhausted but alive. His mind raced with questions about the princess. Why was she helping him? Why risk subtle defiance of her mother? He realized that in Elira's actions there was hope. Hope not just for him, but for change. That night, as the palace grew quiet, Jace felt the presence of the princess once more. She appeared at the edge of his cell, careful not to alert the guards. Her voice was soft, almost a whisper, but it carried authority and concern. "Human," she said. "You are clever. I can see it. But the next trial will be unlike the others. It will challenge everything you know. You must trust yourself, and me." Jace nodded. "I do. But why are you helping me? You could get in serious trouble." Elira hesitated. "Because your survival shows me that not all humans are weak. Your courage is different. And because I cannot stand to see someone die for no reason." It was the first time Jace felt that the aliens were not all enemies. Here was someone who saw him as more than just prey, someone who recognized human strength and courage. The next day, the third trial began. It was a test of endurance and strategy. Jace was placed in a vast arena filled with alien creatures designed to overpower him. Some were mechanical, others biological, all engineered for combat. His task was to reach the other side alive. At first, the creatures charged at him with overwhelming force. Jace dodged, rolled, and fought when necessary. He learned quickly that brute strength was useless. Only intelligence and careful planning would keep him alive. He used the environment, falling pillars, swinging chains, and energy barriers, to his advantage. Once again, subtle assistance appeared. A door that should have been locked was slightly ajar. Jace pushed it, realizing that Elira had altered the mechanism just enough to give him a chance. He moved quickly through the opening, knowing that every second mattered. By the time he reached the arena's end, his body ached, and his clothes were torn. Yet he had survived. The Queen's eyes burned with anger, but the princess smiled faintly. From the sidelines, her hope unhidden this time. Jace knew that the trials would grow harder. He knew that Elira's help could not always be obvious, but he also understood something important. Human resilience, combined with unexpected allies, could overcome even the most dangerous odds. As the guards dragged him back to his cell, he whispered to himself, "No matter what comes next, I will survive. Humans always do. And somewhere in the palace, a princess hoped that her small acts of defiance could change the fate of one human, and maybe one day, the galaxy itself. The palace felt heavier than ever that morning. Captain Jace awoke to the cold metal of his cell, his muscles sore from the previous trial, yet his mind was alive with plans. The Queen's tests had grown more dangerous, but with each challenge, he felt a strange sense of determination. He was not just fighting for his life, he was proving humanity's strength in a galaxy that underestimated them. The door hissed open, and 2 guards stepped in. Behind them, the princess appeared again, as if she had materialized from the shadows. Her eyes met his, holding a silent promise of guidance and hope. Jace realized that he could not survive alone. Elira's subtle aid had become essential. "You face the 4th trial today," the Queen's voice boomed as he was dragged into the central chamber. "It will test your mind and spirit. Fail and you will die publicly. Survive and you will still belong to me." Jace looked around. The trial was unlike the previous ones. Instead of moving platforms or mechanical beasts, the arena had been transformed into a labyrinth of mirrors, illusions, and hidden dangers. He could barely see what was real and what was a reflection. The Queen had designed this trial to confuse and terrify him, hoping he would panic and fail. He took a deep breath and remembered Elira's encouragement. She had given him small hints before, showing that she understood the Queen's methods. Now, he would need every ounce of his focus to navigate the maze. The moment the gates closed, shadows shifted and illusions appeared. He saw multiple copies of himself, and some seemed to move independently. Strange symbols flashed across the walls, forming patterns he had never seen. He realized that the maze tested not just perception, but intelligence. He had to distinguish reality from deception, a challenge that required patience and observation. As he carefully moved forward, he noticed something unusual, a slight shimmer in one corner, where the floor reflected light differently. Trusting his instincts, he approached it. It was a hidden panel that opened a small passage. He understood immediately. Elira had guided him again, leaving clues in ways subtle enough to avoid the Queen's notice. Jace pressed on, moving quickly but cautiously. He avoided false paths and traps that appeared like safe passages. The labyrinth seemed to change as he moved, corridors stretching and twisting unnaturally. Yet his focus never wavered. Humans were survivors, trained to adapt in impossible situations. And that training served him well. Halfway through the maze, a section of the floor dropped suddenly. Jace fell into a lower chamber filled with strange, glowing liquid. Panic tried to rise, but he forced himself to stay calm. Using a piece of broken wall, he created a makeshift bridge, carefully crossing the liquid without touching it. Every movement required precision, and he felt the weight of alien eyes, both Queen and spectators, watching his progress. Then, a sudden sound drew his attention. Elira's voice, faint and disguised by the palace's acoustics, whispered, "Left. Then down. Trust your mind, not your eyes." Jace followed the direction and found another hidden doorway leading closer to the exit. Her guidance was becoming more daring now. She was taking small risks for him, trusting that he could survive. Finally, he reached a wide hall filled with mirrors from floor to ceiling. The reflections multiplied endlessly, making it nearly impossible to determine the correct path. Jace paused, taking a moment to breathe. He realized that he could use the mirrors themselves as a tool. Observing the angles carefully, he spotted the only mirror that reflected the real floor correctly. Using it as a guide, he advanced step by step. A sudden trap triggered, and a section of mirrors swung toward him like blades. He ducked and rolled, narrowly avoiding the strike. His heart pounded, but he kept moving, calculating each move with care. The hall seemed endless, yet he refused to give in to despair. Humans were not easily defeated. They observed, learned, and adapted. At last, he reached the end of the maze. A final door awaited him, glowing faintly with alien energy. He pressed the panel and the door opened smoothly, revealing the light of the central chamber. He had survived the fourth trial. The spectators whispered in astonishment, and even some guards seemed surprised by his success. The queen's eyes blazed with fury. "Impressive," she hissed, "but do not mistake your survival for freedom. You belong to me, and your trials are far from over." Jace was dragged back to his cell, exhausted but alive. He collapsed on the floor, catching his breath. As he rested, he felt movement at the edge of the cell. Elira appeared again, her face glowing faintly in the dim light. "You survived because you trusted yourself," she said softly. "But the next trial? It will challenge everything you know. You will need more than skill. You will need courage and trust." Jace nodded. "I will survive. Humans always do." Elira's eyes softened. "You are not just a human to me. You are brave, clever, and strong. But the queen will notice soon. We must be careful." As she turned to leave, Jace called out, "Will you help me again?" She paused, glancing back. "I will, in ways she cannot see. Trust me." Then she disappeared into the shadows, leaving Jace alone with his thoughts. That night, Jace lay on the cold metal floor, thinking about the trials, the queen, and the mysterious princess who had chosen to help him. He realized that her courage and subtle defiance were as important as his own skills. Together they had a chance, however small, to survive the queen's cruelty. And somewhere in the palace, Elira watched from afar, hoping that her small acts of guidance could change the fate of one human, and perhaps, one day, challenge the queen's tyranny. Jace closed his eyes, preparing himself for the next day. He knew it would be harder, more dangerous, but he also knew this: in a universe full of unknowns, humans adapted, humans survived. And humans, when they had allies, even unexpected ones, could overcome nearly anything. The day began with a heavy silence in the palace. Captain Jace awoke to the same cold, metallic walls, but today felt different. Word had spread through the palace that the queen had grown impatient with his survival. Whispers among the guards hinted at a public display, a trial unlike any before. Jace knew immediately that this meant one thing: the queen was preparing his execution. As the guards arrived, he readied himself, muscles tense, mind alert. He had survived the trials because he had adapted, observed, and, in some small ways, received help from the princess. Today he would need all of that, and more. The central chamber was transformed into a grand arena. Alien citizens from across the planet gathered, their faces a mix of curiosity, excitement, and disdain. The walls shimmered with energy barriers, and platforms rose and fell unpredictably. It was a place designed to humiliate and terrify, a spectacle meant to demonstrate the queen's power and the futility of human life. Vorlaxa sat upon her throne, regal and imposing. Her eyes burned with anger as she surveyed the crowd and her prisoner. "Today," she announced, "the human will die. Let this be a lesson to all who dare defy the power of this palace." Jace's heart pounded, but he refused to show fear. He scanned the arena quickly, noting the positions of guards, platforms, and energy traps. He had been trained for survival under impossible odds, and he knew that panic would be his enemy. From the shadows, a familiar presence appeared. Princess Elira watched him, her eyes intense, her expression unreadable. Jace understood immediately. She would help him again. Though she could not act openly, her subtle signals would be the difference between life and death. The execution began. With a sudden surge of energy, Platforms shifted violently, forcing Jace to leap, roll, and dodge. Energy beams shot across the floor, narrowly missing him. Alien spectators cheered as they expected him to fail, but Jace kept his focus. A group of alien guards advanced toward him, weapons raised. Jace moved strategically, using the environment to his advantage. Swinging chains, collapsing pillars, and shifting platforms became tools rather than obstacles. He relied on his speed, reflexes, and intelligence, qualities the aliens often underestimated in humans. Then, as he reached a particularly dangerous section, Jace noticed a panel on the wall, slightly misaligned. He realized that if he could manipulate it, he might create a shortcut through the deadly arena. Trusting his instincts, he pushed it open, revealing a narrow passage. A faint whisper reached him. "Left," Elira's voice said, disguised by the energy hum of the arena. "Then up." Jace followed the guidance, moving quickly and carefully. The guards pursued him, but the secret passage gave him an advantage. He climbed a small platform, avoiding a trap that would have otherwise struck him. He felt the subtle presence of Elira's support, her courage aiding him without anyone else noticing. As he advanced, he realized the Queen had grown more desperate. The traps became faster, more unpredictable. Beams of energy crisscrossed the floor and platforms shifted erratically. Yet Jace's human ingenuity allowed him to predict movements, leap with precision, and navigate the deadly maze. Suddenly, a massive energy barrier rose in front of him, blocking the final exit. Jace paused, considering his options. Time was running out, and failure meant death. Then he noticed a small control panel partially hidden behind a pillar. He pressed it, and the barrier shifted just enough to allow him to slip through. The crowd gasped. Even some guards looked surprised. Jace had survived the Queen's most public and dangerous trial yet. The arena fell silent for a moment, and then the Queen's fury erupted. "Impossible!" she shouted. "This human, he should not exist!" From her side, Elira stepped forward briefly, her presence undeniable. She did not act openly, but her boldness sent a clear message. She would no longer remain entirely in the shadows. Her eyes met Jace's for a fleeting second, and he understood. She had risked more than ever before to help him survive. The Queen's rage did not end the trial, but it gave Jace a crucial advantage. He realized that Elira's courage could tip the balance. If he survived the remaining moments and followed her guidance, he might yet escape this ordeal alive. As the guards dragged him back to his cell, Jace felt a renewed sense of purpose. He was not just a prisoner, he was a human who had proven the resilience, intelligence, and courage of his species in the face of impossible odds. That night, Elira appeared at the edge of his cell again. "You survived," she said softly, her voice filled with admiration and concern. "Tomorrow will be the most dangerous test yet. It will challenge everything you know, everything you believe. But you must trust me." Jace nodded, his body exhausted, but his mind sharp. "I will survive," he said. "Humans always do." Elira smiled faintly. "I believe that," she whispered. Then she disappeared into the shadows, leaving him alone with his thoughts and the cold metal of the cell. Jace lay back, reflecting on the trials, the Queen's cruelty, and the princess who had chosen to help him. He understood now that their survival depended not only on skill and courage, but also on trust. Trust in oneself, and trust in unexpected allies. He closed his eyes, preparing for the next day. The public execution would test him like never before. Yet he knew that with Elira's courage and his own ingenuity, he had a chance, not just to survive, but to change the course of his fate, and perhaps the fate of the galaxy itself. The morning sun barely touched the palace towers when Captain Jace was awakened. Today was different. The whispers in the palace corridors had grown louder, and he knew what awaited him, a public execution. The queen's impatience had reached its peak. Today, she would display her power for all to see, and Jace would pay the price for defying her. He was dragged to the central arena, a massive structure filled with alien spectators from all over the planet. The platforms gleamed under the alien sun, and energy barriers shimmered across the floor. The air buzzed with anticipation, mixed with fear and excitement. The crowd was here to witness the death of a human who had dared to survive. Vorlaxa. The queen sat upon her throne, imposing and regal. Her eyes glowed with fury as she scanned the audience and her prisoner. "Today," she boomed, "the human will die. Let all who dare defy my will remember this day." Jace's heart raced, but his mind stayed clear. He had survived countless trials already. He had learned that panic was the enemy and focus was his weapon. And he had Elira, the princess, watching from the shadows, guiding him in ways only she could. The execution began with a roar. Energy beams shot across the arena, platforms shifted violently, and mechanical guards advanced with weapons raised. The queen's goal was clear: overwhelm him, show his weakness to the galaxy, and make an example of him. Jace dodged, rolled, and leapt across moving platforms. He used the environment as a weapon, swinging from chains and jumping over collapsing sections of the floor. Every movement was calculated, precise. His human instincts, trained for survival and quick thinking, allowed him to anticipate the dangers before they struck. Yet, the arena was designed to be inescapable. There seemed to be no exit, no chance for survival. Jace realized that brute force would not win this day. He would need help. From the crowd, a familiar presence emerged. Princess Elira stepped forward, no longer hiding completely. The spectators gasped. Her eyes locked with Jace's, and in that moment, a silent understanding passed between them. She was ready to take a risk, to defy her mother openly. The queen noticed immediately. "Elira!" she roared. "Step back. You will not interfere in this human's fate." But Elira did not move. Instead, she approached the edge of the arena. Then, in a shocking act that stunned everyone, she stepped forward and kissed Jace. The gesture was forbidden in their culture, a symbol of protection, alliance, and rebellion all at once. The crowd froze. Whispers of disbelief and awe spread quickly. Some were outraged, others were amazed at the courage of the princess. The queen's fury erupted, but for a brief moment, Elira's defiance held the attention of everyone, giving Jace the opening he needed. Using the distraction, Jace noticed a hidden passage beneath the platforms. He leapt toward it, Elira guiding him with subtle gestures. Guards tried to intercept him, but the queen's momentary shock delayed their actions. Jace moved with speed and precision, sliding into the secret corridor. Elira followed, her courage unwavering despite the danger. "Hurry!" she whispered. "We can escape through the palace tunnels!" Together, they ran through the twisting corridors beneath the palace. The walls pulsed with faint light, and the air smelled of metal and energy. Every turn presented potential hazards, but Jace relied on his human ingenuity, using debris and structural weaknesses to create shortcuts and barriers. Above them, the queen's fury echoed through the halls. Guards pursued them, but Elira's knowledge of the palace allowed them to stay ahead. Small passages, hidden doors, and maintenance shafts provided escape routes that Jace could never have discovered alone. Finally, they reached a chamber where the human scout ship was hidden, a gift from distant allies who had monitored Jace's mission. Elira helped him activate the controls, bypassing the security measures with her knowledge of alien technology. The ship powered up, engines humming with energy ready to leave the hostile planet. As they prepared to launch, the Queen's voice boomed through the corridors. "You cannot escape, Elira, and you, human, will die." Jace glanced at Elira. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. Elira nodded firmly. I am. We have to try. The ship lifted off the ground, its energy shields activating just in time to deflect the Queen's energy strikes. They soared through the palace, narrowly avoiding collapsing structures and pursuing guards. Below them, the alien crowd watched, in shock as the human and the princess escaped, a moment that would be remembered for generations. Once clear of the planet's surface, Jace and Elira breathed easier. The stars stretched out before them, vast and unending. Jace turned to Elira, gratitude and admiration filling his chest. You saved me, he said simply. Elira smiled faintly. No, she replied. We saved each other. You showed me that humans are strong, brave, and clever, and I realized I had to act for what I believe is right. The ship jumped to faster-than-light travel, leaving the hostile planet behind. Jace and Elira were finally free, but they knew that their journey had only just begun. The Queen's anger would follow them, and their alliance would be tested in ways they could not yet imagine. Yet, as they looked at each other, they understood something important: courage, trust, and the bond between two determined beings, human and alien, could overcome even the most impossible odds. Together they had defied a queen, survived death, and claimed a chance to write their own destiny. And somewhere deep in the galaxy, a story began to spread, of a human who survived the impossible, and a princess who defied her mother for the courage and heart of one extraordinary man. The stars stretched endlessly before them as Captain Jace and Princess Elira sat in the cockpit of the human scout ship. The red-tinted planet with its cruel queen shrank behind them, a world full of danger and memory. Jace's hands rested lightly on the controls, but his mind was not on the instruments. It was on Elira, on the courage she had shown, the risks she had taken, and the bond they had formed in the face of impossible odds. You could have stayed safe, Jace said quietly, glancing at her. You didn't have to help me. Elira shook her head, her hair floating slightly in the zero-gravity cabin. I couldn't just watch someone die when I knew it wasn't right. You showed me humans are more than I imagined, brave, clever, alive in ways I hadn't seen before. Jace smiled faintly. And you? You risked everything. You defied your mother, your people, your entire world for me. I don't know what to say. You don't need to say anything, Elira replied softly. We survived. That is enough. For now. The ship moved quickly through the star lanes, leaving the Queen's planet behind. Elira had shared what she knew of her world: the palace, the guards, the secret passages. Jace realized that without her guidance, escape would have been impossible. Yet more than that, he understood that humans and aliens could find common ground even in the most dangerous circumstances. We need to find allies, Elira said after a pause. My mother will not stop hunting us. We need help to survive and to show that her cruelty does not define our people. Jace nodded. I have contacts, human allies who monitor the galaxy. They will help us. And maybe we can show others that humans are not weak, that we adapt, we survive, and we fight for what is right. Elira studied him, admiration and hope in her eyes. I want to stand with you, she said. If you fight for life, for justice, I will fight with you, even against my own mother if I must. The conversation was interrupted by the ship's sensors. A distant fleet of alien ships was tracking them, reinforcements sent by the Queen. Jace's instincts kicked in. He pushed the ship to its limits, weaving through asteroid fields and using every maneuver he had learned in years of human exploration. Elira assisted with alien technology, manipulating shields and energy outputs to maximize speed. The fleet pursued them relentlessly, but Jace and Elira worked together, blending human ingenuity and alien knowledge. Their cooperation became seamless, a human mind complemented by an alien's experience and skill. Each obstacle the fleet presented became a challenge they overcame with quick thinking and trust in each other. Hours later, they emerged from the asteroid field, leaving their pursuers behind. Both were exhausted, but their spirits were unbroken. Elira leaned back, smiling faintly. "We survived again." "Yes," Jace agreed. "But this is only the beginning. My people and your people, together, we can show the galaxy what humans are capable of and maybe change the course of the Empire itself." Elira nodded. She looked out at the stars, imagining a future she had never dared to consider. A future where compassion, courage, and alliance could stand against tyranny. "I want to see that," she said softly. "Not as a princess who obeys, blindly, but as someone who chooses what is right." Jace reached over, taking her hand. "Then we face it together," he said. "No matter what comes, we survive. Humans always do. But now, we're not alone." The journey ahead was uncertain. They would encounter dangers, enemies, and perhaps betrayals. Yet for the first time they felt hope, a rare burning hope that courage and trust could overcome fear and cruelty. As they navigated the star lanes, they began to plan their next move. Jace contacted human allies, sharing coordinates and requesting reinforcements. Elira reached out to dissidents within her empire, those who opposed her mother's tyranny. Together, they began forming a network, a quiet, growing force that could challenge oppression and protect those who could not defend themselves. The bond between them strengthened with every shared decision, every challenge overcome. Jace taught Elira human tactics, strategy, and ways to think beyond what seemed impossible. Elira taught Jace about her world, the strengths and weaknesses of alien technology, and the importance of understanding cultures to survive. Weeks passed as they traveled, gathering allies and resources. Word of their escape spread across the galaxy, whispers of courage, defiance, and the survival of one human and an alien princess who dared to act against cruelty. Their story inspired others, sparking hope where there had been only fear. 1. Night as the ship drifted near a distant star, Elira turned to Jace. "Do you think my mother will stop?" she asked quietly, a trace of worry in her voice. Jace smiled, calm and confident. "No, but she doesn't need to. What matters is that we've shown what humans can do. We adapt, we survive, and now we can change the future, not by fear, but by courage." Elira nodded, her eyes reflecting the light of the stars. For the first time, she felt truly free, free from the shadows of her mother, free to choose her own path, and free to stand beside someone who saw her not as a princess, but as an ally, a friend, and perhaps something more. The ship sailed on, past the glowing star systems, into the uncharted spaces of the galaxy. Jace and Elira were no longer just survivor and helper. They were partners in a mission greater than either had imagined. Together, they would face danger, challenge empires, and prove that courage, trust, and determination could overcome even the most impossible odds. And somewhere in the darkness of the galaxy, a human and an alien princess dared to hope that their actions could light the way for others, proving that even across worlds and species, bravery and heart could change the course of history.